Matt, you've come into PERKii originally as the director and now as CEO of the company. For the people who haven't sort of understood the deep, background behind PERKii, tell us a little bit about what makes PERKii different and how did you get from a technology to a product?
Okay, so give a little bit of background, and obviously you've touched on earlier ProGel. University of Queensland, a form of technology, and the business ProGel in terms of encapsulating a range of options of ingredients. One of those that was identified along with vitamins, proteins, omega-3s was probiotics, with a very big understanding of the growth rate of probiotics in the food and beverage industry. In the US, there's an estimated $50 billion market by the end of 2018. So with this knowledge, we knew there was an opportunity from a commercialization point of view, but it was also ultimately understanding what that encapsulation is going to add in value to the consumer as it is now. So some really key basic ones that we identified that we knew we could leverage taking to market was, first of all, a shelf life stability. Many probiotic products have a habit of effectively killing themselves on the shelf. So the advantage of the encapsulation lets us have a shelf life up to 4 months, which from a commercial point of view makes our trade partners and ultimately the consumers have a wider option. The other side effect of this, importantly, was options with flavours. Most of what you see out there, and I guess what most people will know as the market leader in terms of Yakult, generally fermented, and there's other forms obviously in kombuchas and keffirs and the like, but primarily they're a fermented taste, high sugar. By using this technology, we realised we could take what was a healthy concept of probiotics, but put it into a healthy drink. So low sugar, low calorie, and be able to bring the natural flavours that we all like in our day-to-day beverages. And I guess probably the big part that the innovation allowed us to do is ultimately provide something that we knew and we've tested to prove that the probiotics can actually deliver to the intestine. So through the acidic stomach and ultimately get into the gut where you need it most. So I guess with all those wonderful things in terms of identifying those is then understanding, right, how do we take this to market? And that was going through a process of, first of all, setting up the own business and then understanding the channels. And even early on was working out who our key consumers are. And as we've developed to the bottle as you see it today, and also just with partners that we talk about with distribution, was really identifying the importance of knowing that consumer and where we sit on shelf, which is kind of where we are today, and understanding that it's a health and very much wellness positioning, and understanding that we attribute that to the consumer with all our partners.
Cool. So in terms of, obviously the business had a product, but it didn't have any money. How did you go about, and what do you think was the important thing in terms of being able to raise, how did you fund the business to where it is now, and why or how were you able to secure that investment?
Okay, nice simple answer. As I say, like all investors, importance is understanding what the exit is and ultimately what the multiple is. Because we've got a piece of technology, a patent piece of technology, first of all, we're protected in the sense of no one else out there can do what we're doing. But the key thing for us was then obviously taking it and getting a proof of concept. For the investors, they also saw the value of the license that PERKii holds, why we've kicked off with a beverage and what we call a probiotic water. We have a license in food and bev. Now, that allows us two distinct options from revenue point of view. One is obviously to do line extensions, whether it's going to flavours, different types of drinks, even into the foods, or identifying, and generally non-competitive areas, where this same technology can be licensed out. So working with partners who we're already sort of a good step way through with a few people, talking about milks in the breakfast milk area, talking about ice creams, and also looking into some other individual lines where we can see an opportunity where people want probiotics, but it's not for us to focus on from a business point of view. But ultimately, as an investor, if we can have multiple revenues coming in both what we're doing direct and indirect, it makes for a very attractive investment.
Yeah, cool. So in terms of the strategy, I mean, the beverage space is incredibly busy. There's lots and lots of beverages, multinational beverages, small niche beverages. How do you think, what's the core thing, do you think, if we fast forward to a few years' time and PERKii's been successful, what would be the key differentiator, the key point of difference that you think from a consumer's point of view? Why is a consumer going to reach in and grab a PERKii versus something else?
Absolutely. I think, again, innovation-wise, you've got two options. I think for us, again, we've got that ProGel patent to go with. If we do our job right, and in 3 years' time, suggest that we will have been doing it right, people will be able to differentiate the quality of probiotic that's getting delivered. Real strength of the technology means that we can say to people, what's inside the drink is going to make a difference into your stomach, into your gut. So that key point of difference, making sure you have an innovation that is relative to what people need, so that comes with the education fact. And then I think the other element is making sure we keep innovating. It's not a matter of sort of sitting on one product. People and other competitors will continue to move things into that consumer mind, and we need to make sure that both we're relevant and people understand that we've got a fresh product from the use.
Sure. And how do you go about connecting to the right consumer? So I'm assuming you've got a particular demographic, a target consumer. How do you go about A, identifying them, and B, getting the message to them and communicating to them?
Absolutely. Look, I think the identification part's a really important thing to do, and you can go through a great deal of research, and I think it's that ongoing research, but from your consumers, whether from excerpts, just for consumer groups. But ultimately, also understanding in this day and age, we've got an amazing web of connectivity, using those around you and those fans that you already have to understand what motivates them more. And I think Chobani was on earlier, and they're probably one of the best at doing it. And it's something I think many brands around the world are now very much trying to play catch up on, and that's a vital part to what we do. The second part of the question was?
How do you communicate that? What media do you use? How do you get the message out there?
Yeah, so I guess in this day and age, the most important part is it's an integrated situation. It's about making sure you know what your message is. And then the second part is understanding who are those influencers and the credibility that's going to bring it. A lot of it, obviously important for us in the health and wellness world, comes from that social influencer channel and understanding how to harness that. But it's important, especially when we start going into a beverage world and you're dealing with major players, that you understand those traditional channels to reinforce that message that starts with the one-to-one.
Sure. And what would you say are some of the key challenges in scaling up something from very low volumes to then large volumes? You've got to use efficient use of capital. How do you go about maximising, I guess, the capital that you've got and getting that distribution and penetration as quickly as you can?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it all comes down to having excellent partners. I think for most small businesses, the capital investment can often be too much or just too risky. Understanding there are people out there that are specialists in what they do, and really making sure you're working with them closely and making sure they understand your vision as well. So whether it's a bottler or, as I said, whether you're working with sort of an individual from an influencer point of view, making sure that they understand what your targets are, setting those parameters and then putting the structure around to allow you to scale.
Yeah. So how important do you think is the connection back with the university? Obviously, this is a technology that emanated from university. It's Australian. There's not a lot of really successful Australian-made beverages. Mm-hmm. How important do you think is that connection back to a university and the credibility of that?
I think it's vital for the story we tell. And I think especially when we start talking about the health industry or health and wellness industry, people now are armed with these little computers everywhere they go, and people want to know exactly what's going into their body. Or the other side is that they're actually actively searching for something. So having a base that comes with tried and tested science is vital. And even going down to a sales point of view and a reputation point of view, it's opened real doors through some of the most vital channels that we need, and that's going into the education channels, particularly when we talk about probiotics and the options both from a university level but into a schooling level as well.
And do you see that opportunity? I mean, obviously the product is a lower sugar product. Does that how does that tie into your targeted key demographic?
Absolutely. I think our key demographic, that's sort of 25 to 35. health and wellness fanatic, and what we like to call, follow Chobani in terms of that health foodie. Focus is very much about understanding what each part of their day represents. It's not necessarily about being perfect all day. It's just about understanding, right, if I'm going to be working out here, I'm going to have a good healthy drink here, and then I can enjoy myself elsewhere. So being able to provide that is vital.
Yeah, okay. And in terms of manufacturing, I mean, you've started a new product. I don't think you have your own factory. How have you gone about, I guess, extending, getting your product produced and getting it out there in the market?
I guess there's probably two sides. There's the manufacturing, and then there's, particularly in Australia in the beverage world, the distribution. And for us, distribution is probably one of the key challenges and opportunities. You've got the big boys, obviously your Coca-Colas, your Schweppes, your Frucors, which then means you need to sort of take that next almost combative step. You work very closely with the small distributors, making sure that you're a hero brand amongst them. And I think, that's for most people in the food and beverage world is the key part. Distribution, get it on shelf, and then you can focus on, as I said, whether it's the marketing and the credibility that comes behind it. But from a manufacturing point of view, that's very much, again, in a similar way, picking a partner that has a similar, value proposition for you. If we're going to a massive producer, when we're just starting off very small, they're not going to be turning on the spot to help you. It's great having a partner who we do with Bevco, who are very much interested in to grow with us. So they're what you call a relatively small manufacturer that's willing to adapt, test and try to get the best result for both parties.
So just in closing, if we've got some food innovators out here, have you got some advice as to what you would say and what we've learned within the PERKii journey as to how you advise someone who's got a great idea and wants to get out there and actually try and see if they can make it successful?
Absolutely. I think my key advice would be look to reach out, pick some really key co-interested partners early on. It's not about trying to be everywhere at once. Things grow, and the best way to grow them is in that organic, day-by-day piece, and even geographically focused. Understand what you do really well, find a partner who has a similar passion, and grow.
Awesome, great. Please join me in thanking Matt for his time.